meeting
This conference will now be recorded.
Board of Managers. You've got me presiding this evening. Our chair, Alyssa Leonard, is in transit this evening. She may be joining remotely still. Meanwhile, you've got the pleasure of my trying to kind of live up to her example this evening. And we've got an exciting agenda with a number of topics of great interest, I think, to cover. With that, calling the meeting to order, and let me see if we might also approve the minutes of two recent meetings, the executive session on June 8th, 2026, as well as the regular monthly meeting. Might I hear a motion?
I move to approve the minutes of the Board of Managers executive session regular monthly meeting held on June 8th, 2026 as drafted.
Second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Ms. Willard has joined.
Terrific. Okay, and then moving on from that, from the approval of minutes of our previous meetings, on to the treasurer's report. Gary.
Previously, when we have gotten income tax just income tax receipts from the state, we've had better than expected results. We've got our final one for the year, and I'm afraid this time it's better than expected again. When you add all these things up, our income tax receipts are about 50% more than we budgeted for. And they're about 30% more than we budgeted for 2027. As usual, there's very little that we can glean from that in terms of wisdom and what to expect, to the extent that they reflect economic conditions at all. It's mostly the economic conditions of 2 years ago that these affect. And some of the money that came into this last tranche was from 2022, because the state keeps back 10% or something, just trying to keep municipalities from getting bad surprises. Give them a little, anyway, they for whatever reason, we got lots more than we expected to, and so the original deficit that was planned in the budget is certainly not going to happen.
So we'll take the surprise on this.
Yes.
Sounds good.
Gary, we're disappointed, but we'll overlook it this
Yeah.
time.
Well done.
Somebody had to give you the news.
Thank you.
Moving on to appeals, special permit and variance request, and in particular, case A-2933 regarding public tree removal for Mr. James Todaro, if I'm pronouncing it correctly, and Ms. Bernice Todaro at the 104 Newlands. And with that, really, please.
Thank you. The applicants in case number A-2933, Mr. and Mrs. Todaro of 104 Newland Street, seek to remove 3 trees currently located in the Newlands Street public right-of-way, adjacent to their home, to accommodate a proposed private driveway. The 3 trees sought for removal were planted by the previous owner of the property and include 1 southern magnolia measuring 12 inches in diameter, 1 cryptomeria measuring 9 inches in diameter, and 1 wood measuring 3 inches in diameter. The property does not currently have a private driveway. The proposed driveway would extend into the property at 106 Newlands, creating a circular driveway configuration across both properties. The applicants contend that removal of the trees is necessary to accommodate the proposed driveway to improve accessibility to the house as the applicants seek to age in place. The applicants state that there is no other location for the driveway where they could avoid removal of existing trees in the public right-of-way. Identifying a location for the driveway is further constricted by a power pole in the public right-of-way adjacent to the property. The trees are currently located behind a fence, and there is no sidewalk along the street frontage of this area. The applicants have obtained the required roadside tree removal permits from the Maryland Department of Natural Resources for the removals, which is required for any elective removals of trees located in the public right-of-ways in Maryland. The tree committee has received notice of the request, but has not yet provided a response. To date, no opposition or support has been received from abutting neighbors. However, the adjacent property at 106th Street is owned by the applicant's daughter, and she has expressed her approval. The village arborist has reviewed the location of the reforestation trees and has approved the plan. The applicants are our president, right here with us today. So, and I'm happy to answer any questions that the board may have.
When is the tree committee when would you get there to see?
So they're not obligated to comment. And so since we have not received comment from them in time for this evening's hearing, I do not anticipate that we will receive formal comment from them.
How does this square with any precedents? Is this an unprecedented situation?
No, there's multiple precedents for, projects to remove trees in the village for driveways and for other projects as well.
And one thing I would just highlight, Aurelio mentioned it, but just to reinforce that these were also trees that were planted by the prior owner of the property. This particular lot had been subject to some re-subdivisions and new home build, et cetera, and some various different changes over the years. And so as a part of a prior landscape plan by the previous owners, these trees were put in. These were not trees that the village planted. Sorry.
And they have come up with a plan to replace all 3 trees in the right of way, and they're located here in this plan. 2 smaller trees on the left side, and then that larger one on the right. 2 black gums and a Princeton elm.
Well, I guess I would comment that the special circumstances of this case, combined with the precedents from similar cases, this is one of the easiest ones I've ever seen. And I'd be happy to move to approve the public tree removals as requested in case A2933 to accommodate a proposed private driveway.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Yeah. 5 yes, no opposed. Motion is approved. Sounds good.
Thank you all for being here.
All right.
But also to kind of add that unfortunately my husband.
Here, if you wouldn't mind just come to the podium so we can make sure
Oh, I
that
gotta
everyone.
figure it out for us.
We also have some people joining virtually.
Oh,
Yeah, they can't hear you. Come on.
Okay, I don't want to take any of your time. I just wanted to say that, thank you all for being here and for considering this application. We live, as you noted, as was noted, next to our daughter. And my husband and I have lived there for 11 years now. Unfortunately, my husband has a diagnosis of both dementia and Parkinson's, so he's wheelchair restrictor bound. So we are just really looking forward to having some access for him to get to the street and get in the car. And it's very difficult otherwise, especially for me. I all summer long was saying I'm knocking on the door of 80, but I passed that. I went through the door the other day, so I know it's okay. So anyway, so I'm just really hoping that we can stay where we are. We love the village and we love being near our daughter and her children and husband, but the wheelchair access is a real problem for us. So thank you for
And thank you for
considering.
coming in, and belated happy birthday.
Thank you.
I know. Also that so far.
Okay, we got one more. The applicants in case number A 8696 A and B, Mr. and Mrs. McDaniel of 46 Grafton Street seek to maintain a fence measuring 6 feet and 7 inches in height. An administratively issued building permit was approved to replace a prior fence, which has been installed pursuant to an approved variance and special permit in cases A 5890 and A 5891 for a maximum height of 6 feet. The applicants seek from the Board of Managers a special permit for the portions located in the Cedar Parkway public right-of-way and a variance for the portions of the fence located on private property forward of the 25-foot building restriction line. In December 2024, the applicants were issued a village permit, building permit for the in-kind installed by the current applicants after receiving a complaint from a passerby, village staff confirmed that the fence exceeded the approved height by 7 inches. The applicants acknowledged that the fence was not installed consistent with the issued building permit and stated in their application that the oversight occurred when they agreed to additional elements proposed by their contractor, including a 1-inch trim board along the top and decorative caps on the posts. The Historic Preservation Commission has approved the fence as constructed. And over the weekend, the applicant submitted confirmation that the maximum fence height is now 6 foot 6 inches. And these supplemental materials have been added to the record and were circulated to the board prior to the meeting. The 6 foot 7 inch height was initially measured by staff in September 2025. While there are case precedents for board authorizations of variances and special permits for fences in front yards in the public right of way on properties abutting streets with a high volume of traffic, staff has confirmed that fences along Cedar Parkway are generally set further back from the adjacent sidewalk, and the highest fence authorized along Cedar Parkway measures 6 feet 2 inches. To date, no objections to the request has been received, and letters of support for the as-built fence were submitted by 3 abutting neighbors. The applicants are online virtually, and again, I'm happy to answer any questions the board may have.
We let the applicants speak. And I don't know if Ms. or Ms. McDaniel,
Mr. McDaniel is on the virtual.
yeah, if you'd like to take a minute to kind of describe the situation, if you would. And if not, that's okay too.
Yeah, we're gonna get him unmuted. Jennifer, are you able to unmute him? Mr. McDaniel, if you can accept the unmute request.
Thought I was unmuted.
There we go. We can hear
Okay.
you.
Oh, well, now I'll go back to my confession. So I'm the root of the problem. I did agree to the decorative caps and the trim board, which I just didn't even think about it. So trying to figure out my options, looked around the neighborhood and did see that other fences were in excess of 6 feet, so decided to appeal. And did so on the grounds of, for the same reason that the permit was granted 25 years ago. But I think the real issue is the fence is not 6 feet 7 inches. There is one out of 140 linear feet and 18 or 20 4x4 posts with a decorative cap. There's one, I believe, that measures 6 feet 7 inches. So that's, I guess, the issue. So I'm sorry, go ahead.
What does the rest measure? If you might ask? If it's not
Everything is under 6.5 feet. The fence itself is less than 6.5 feet. It's the 4x4s with the trim board and the decorative cap that get it predominantly above 6 feet.
And this was just a contractor question to you and kind of an inadvertent seeding of the maximum height.
Oh yeah, I bought the old last minute upsell.
Yeah, no,
Would seem
understood.
like a good idea to me, and I honestly didn't think through the consequences, so.
If I could offer a few issues on the topic. This strikes me as a tough one. First, because I think there's no precedent for a fence of this height along Cedar Parkway. And I believe there's two other fences, Aurelio, that are at 6'2" going back some.
Yeah,
time
there,
ago.
yeah, there are two fences. I have
Right.
them written down. Hold on one
It's
second.
6'2" was maybe the highest
Right.
we confirmed as built.
Yeah,
And was that the height of the fence or the height of the cap?
To the height of the cap, the max height.
So the fence was probably 6 feet.
It may have been. The village's policy is that we measure the maximum height of a fence, so
Right.
to its highest element. Whereas the county does afford decorative elements above the approved or issued height for a fence.
The fence you're describing is on Cedar Parkway? At
It
6
runs
feet?
along Cedar Parkway, correct?
Where does that run?
So it is from Grafton Street to a point aligned with the rear property line for the property at 46 Grafton.
and so lacking a specific precedent, but at the same time, this would be precedent setting. There's not a clear hardship other than the expense or inconvenience of correcting the height, if I'm correct. It might also be worth noting, just from my observation, that this is right up against the sidewalk, right up against the right of way. And I think that in the rare case where any part of the fence has exceeded 6 feet, there's been some distance between the fence and the right of way. And then lastly, just for clarity, the Historic Preservation Commission is a county body which has more liberal height standards than the village. So their approval of a 6'5" fence need not prejudice the village's approach to its longstanding regulations capping a fence height at 6 feet. So I think it's just important to call out for my fellow board members that distinction of what the Historic Preservation Commission says versus the village's rules. I'll stop there and please others. Questions and comments?
I agree with your observation.
I think, it is concerning, to your point, that you're gonna start having people wanting 6'9" fences. Yeah, it's too bad. I'm just wondering whether taking the decorative caps off
Right.
at least gets it back to arguably 6'2", which is the precedent, right?
6'2" is the precedent. 6 feet is what this body has
Right.
previously approved for this property and what the original building permit was issued for. The additional 2 inches, just the highest as-built measurement that we were able to find for any other fence along Cedar.
I'm sorry, one more time, what is the address of that earlier
I
precedent?
believe it was 29.
Yeah, 29 had this 6'2".
Yeah, thank you. 29 Heskett.
Could I ask the owners there whether, have you talked to your contractor about the feasibility of cutting this back down to the right size?
We did talk early on. There's probably a way to do it. It wouldn't, I mean, there's got to be a way to do it. If you got a saw and a hammer and nails, I'm sure they could cut off the decorative caps and perhaps remove the trim board. And I'm 99% sure Aurelio could probably back me up. That would get it to 6 feet 2 inches. I think just cutting off the 4x4s with the caps would do it. I'm not sure about the trim bar. I'd have to ask Aurelio and go out and measure as well.
Yeah, it would be very close at that point. Yeah, I think when I measured it, most of the fence above the added fence is what took it above, right? So the fence was 6 foot and then the board along the top and the extra posts are what take it above. That's correct.
Any further board comment?
How far is the 6'2" fence from the right of way? This is right up abutting the sidewalk.
I think all others would have at least a 5 to like an 8-foot berth between, a curb. Most of them, or some of them, I'm sorry, don't have sidewalks. So there's, we always ask for a 6-foot distance between a fence and a curb. This is one where typically we would ask for 3 feet, but it was approved at some other point, to be in its current location.
So the gap between the sidewalk and the fence is,
Yeah, it's like maybe a foot.
Mm,
Mr. McDaniel, would you agree with that? About a foot between the
I
sidewalk?
think, no more than a foot and a half.
Well, that was part of the prior board decision to allow that,
Correct.
correct? That is something that the board had to allow, because normally it would not be allowed.
And just to clarify for Mr. Goodman, the fence at 29 Hesketh, there is no public sidewalk along that block. And the fence is considerably set back from the right of way. Aurelio has been out, and you said 8 to 9 feet roughly.
Yeah.
It could be even more
That
than
one's
that,
set
but
back
it's
pretty
considerably
far.
set back.
Did I hear
Just-
correctly that this came to our attention because somebody was walking along the sidewalk and said, hey, this looks too high?
Correct.
just offering my own observation before I had awareness of the case, walking down that street, this fence did attract my attention as well. I mean, it's a fairly abrupt, fixture as you're going down the sidewalk on Cedar Parkway. So speaking from my point of view, that I am very wary of a precedent that would allow fences of this height exceeding the 6-foot maximum, especially this close to the right of way. But I think at the end of the day, the operative concern is the 6-foot height maximum, which this board has been very consistent in enforcing.
I'm usually disposed to these kinds of things to find a way to allow it. But I'm scratching my head here.
Yeah.
I don't really see it.
Lou, I concur with your view of it. I think Mr. McDaniel talked about, obviously, the contractor way beyond what it's permitted to. I think you should try to bring it back in conformity. And it looks like, I'm not a fence guy, it looks like it could be done.
Yeah.
Maybe with a thinner board on the top, something.
And knowing that a lot of times when these things get installed, at least my observation of seeing a lot of fence construction in the neighborhood, it's not uncommon that the fence gets installed and then they just cut it off at the intended height. Now, of course, this is a finished project, so there's a little more complicated than that, but it might not be an extreme hardship to correct this. But with that, is there a motion?
I move to deny the variance and special permit request for stay of 96A. Based on the evidence presented, including staff report, case notice, demonstration, approval requirements for the approval of the permit. That was directed to grant the decision based on this evidence.
Second. All in favor of the motion denying?
Aye.
4,
Aye.
5, it sounds like,
Ms. Willard as well.
okay, good. No dissent from that. Mr. McDaniel, sorry for that outcome, though. I think you've got some voices of experience, especially in the village and with Aurelia, that help find the most expeditious way to correct this. But thank you for coming in this evening, and I'm sorry it wasn't the outcome.
I'll work to him and get it done.
Yeah.
Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
And on from appeals and permits and variances to other matters of board discussion, including a Friendship Heights sector plan update. And I think we've got some special guests
Yes.
and presenters.
While staff is doing some musical chairs here, we'll just officially welcome our new land planner approved by the board. I believe it was just last month. You really hit the ground running here, John. John Marcolin has been very active with us over the last month, getting fully up to speed on the current state of the Montgomery Planning Department's rewrite of the Friendship Heights sector plan, as well as orienting himself to the village. And we had an in-depth walking tour of the western edge of the village, of the current sites on the collection property and Saks properties. And so this evening, John is going to be providing a general overview of where we are today, what has been released from the planning department, the images that John has created to help represent in more of a 3D fashion what is being recommended by the planning department, and then to talk about next steps in the county's review process of the sector plan. I also just want to note that helping along with John has been our zoning attorney, Michelle Rosenfeld, who is here as well. And again, she has been very active in helping us get to the point where we have the materials here to present to you this evening. So I will turn things over to John.
Thank you, Shanna.
Sure.
My background is I'm a landscape architect and land planner. I have 30 years experience. I spent 30 of those years, 15 of those years working for the planning department. So I used to head up master plans. So I'm very familiar with the process. That said, let's move on. So these two slides are the planning department's recommendations. They cover building massing, height, placement, connectivity, parks, public spaces, and connections. And I'm not going to go over each one of these bullets, but I will cover them in the following presentation. What I want to note is there's been some concern from the community that this is the last opportunity. Up to this point, there will be no more opportunities for the community to weigh in, and I want to correct that. The planning department will be presenting to the planning board on Thursday the recommendations. And when the planning board, if they approve, it probably will approve a planning board draft, then the record's open for comment from the public. 30 days, typically 30 days. I think the first hearing is on the 10th of September. So you have that about 30 days to write in to the planning department. And when I was at the planning department, we started reviewing those comments as soon as they came in. So I recommend that the community begin to write, not wait till the last minute. The second opportunity is at the planning hearing itself. They have a public hearing. There's two public hearings, the 10th and the 14th, I believe. So you either in person or virtually.
I'm just
So-
looking to a village meeting.
Excuse me? I'm sorry.
I think they need to mute someone who's online right now.
Okay. And then the third opportunity is when the planning department has their work sessions, planning board rather has their work sessions, after they make the recommendations that they send it up to the county council, at which point the county council has their own public hearings. And then as the community member can reach out to their county council member, either the one who represents them in this district, and there are 4 at-large county council members, and they do listen. So those are 3 or 4 opportunities along the process. So there's no worries for the community. There's plenty of opportunities to make themselves heard. So these slides show the planning department's draft height and density recommendations that came out last week. So you have 100 feet along the Saks property, jumping up to 150 to 200 and to 250 at the very southern end where the metro station is. And then this slide on the right shows the proposed densities. And I think you're all familiar with these slides. This is the urban design diagram. So basically it shows how they propose to lay out the blocks and the roads. So that the buildings would be in this light tan area. The streets would basically cut through here, here, and here. And then the yellow arrows indicate the pedestrian access. And they're presently proposing pedestrian access here where one exists today at Montgomery Street, an additional access point here adjacent to Center Street and another third access at Western Grove Park going up that 15 to 20-foot grade. This is a plan that I did based on that recommendation, their layout. So I wanted to show you how this would look in 3 dimensions, the massing diagram. So I'm showing the step ups, the streets, and the open spaces. You see more of this coming
What
up.
are you assuming about the Saks building?
Excuse me?
Are you assuming that the Saks building is going to go away?
Yes.
In-
This is a slide from the planning department draft recommendations that came out on
John.
that.
But the Saks building does have a longer 25-year lease.
Yes,
from
that
Chevy Chase Center.
they have. to-
Chevy Chase Land.
That's
Correct.
correct. This is assuming they resolve those issues. This is all in the future. This is the ultimate build-up. So I'm not addressing some legal issues about
But
existing.
this
easements.
represents kind of a worst case scenario. If the Saks building stayed there, it would be lower in height than some of what you're showing us here.
Oh, nothing would happen.
Yeah.
So yeah, this is the full build-up. Now, of course, the Saks property will probably happen first. I'm assuming because it's open, it's parking lot, assuming they have an arrangement with the Saks property to, deal with that. What is it, an easement or a,
Agreed. And I think it's also fair to say that because of where the building is situated on the property, it's also appropriate to assume that they are not going to try to incorporate that physical structure into whatever their new development is. It should be expected that they're likely to demolish that building, very likely to pursue below-grade parking structures of some sort, and then build on the surface.
Shana, is that an historic building?
No,
no?
no,
When was it built?
in the 50s.
Then it's an historic building.
Not as far as Montgomery County is concerned.
Oh, really?
And the
60.
value of the building and the parking lots on each side is such that one would expect pretty aggressive negotiations to resolve the tenant issues with the Chevy Chase Land Company, such that something's going to happen there sooner than when that lease might go. So, and the time frame here, so at the outside edge, John, the time frame would be, we're talking 20, 25 years if nothing happened.
Mhm.
But the more likely scenario is something's going to happen there.
3 or 4 years.
Yeah. Okay.
Any more questions? Okay. So this slide I pulled from the recommendations, and the reason why it's important is what they're offering is this line here is a zoning ordinance compatibility plan. So typically, the CR zone restricts heights along a plane that starts at the plan boundary line here. And what they're offering is they will start this compatibility plane at the face of the building here. So it's a concession to the community. I would put it that way. These next series of slides are looking southwest over the existing Saks building, and we are looking basically above the Belmont Avenue and Oliver Street intersection. So this is Wisconsin Avenue. This is the property line. The collection's back here. And this is a simulation or illustration of what the planning department's massing could look like. 45-foot buildings fronting on the Belmont Avenue and Oliver Street, stepping back at a 1-to-1 ratio to 100 feet here. And at the northern end, adjacent to the collection, and that's Park Street, stepping up to 150 feet.
So it,
Yeah.
go ahead.
I think we could open it up to audience questions if, let's get through the presentation and circle back.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
And this image shows how the proposed 25 to 30-foot buffer would look. And it's important because it does have an effect on how this new building mass feels. It does a lot to tone down the effect of this new construction. And this is what Chevy Chase Village has proposed. So you have asked for 45-foot heights, going back 75 feet and then stepping up to 85 feet. We feel that that's more in keeping with the character of the community. So instead of having multifamily, essentially what are multifamily buildings with a townhouse look facing these single family homes, you have essentially what are also single family homes that have to be attached facing in the single family community and then stepping up after that. And this is how that would look with the proposed buffer and microforest. Again, it tones down the effect of this building mass along the street. And this is a bird's eye view of the entire proposal, entire development rather. This is the collection property here and the Saks property here. And these red lines show the one-to-one height setback. So we have 100 feet here, 100 feet. This is 150, 200, and at the very end, where the metro station is 250 feet. John, the building that you show on Western, it looks like that's this one here. Yeah, it looks like that's much lower. Oh, this one here? The one on the far left, on the upper.
We can't see what you're
We can't
pointing.
see the.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's okay.
Can you
Yeah.
see that corner?
Yeah, what's the height of that?
That's a good question. I put it at 60 feet, but the planning department has not specified what that height should be. They've specified 60 feet here, 45 feet here, but when you get to this point, there is no height specified. So I have communicated with the planning department, asking what they intend that height to be. I think it should be 60 feet. It makes sense. So this is a view looking towards north over Belmont and Montgomery Street. If you can see underneath, this is the existing collection circle drive, and this is where your access comes through here. Sorry, I think that's correct. And they're proposing a half-acre green space, and this building shows it's 150 feet. That's what's proposed by the planning department. And this is what we've asked for, the Chevy Chase Village has asked for, 85 feet and a 3/4 acre green space. So if it has a much bigger impact. I feel that it's more in keeping with the community feel. For example, Western Grove is 2 acres.
John, does the wall of the buffer zone stay?
Right here?
You can't really see it, so it would still be there.
The wall,
Okay.
well, that's what they're proposing is putting the buildings right up to it, so the wall would be gone, to build up to it. And what they have offered here is because there's a 10-foot, 20-foot difference, they would set their 60-foot tall buildings, measure it from this side, from the collection side, so that when you're over here standing in the community, it feels more like 40 or 50 feet, because there's a grade change. This is a view looking north from Western Avenue. You're all familiar with this, the collection. This is where the Amazon Fresh was. This is the metro station. These are the collection buildings. This is the parking lot. This is the West Grove Park. And this is an image of what the build-out would look like. Now, I have to say, the urban designer did a good job of laying things out. I think the street and block pattern is nice. It's very pedestrian scale. I think the experience there would be pleasant. But the question is do the buildings really need to be this tall? So let me describe this a little bit.
Hey, John,
excuse me, the really green square rectangle next to Western Grove, is that another park that would be basically on the west side?
From the plan recommendations, it appears to be a park, but they don't call it out specifically. They call it as a transition zone, like a terrace transition zone. So I'm assuming they're thinking of it as a park. So what they're proposing is basically it's a terrace, set of terraces that go up this way. And my experience, I think that it's better that that you keep this as a green space and not try to create a grand set of steps, because you're talking about 40 or 50 steps and a handicap ramp, which takes up a lot of space. So I think the parks would spend their money better if they just made this a green space that did not have transition and then had the transition come around this way. There already is access this way. So we could talk about that further.
The residential units here would be eligible to go higher if they provided public amenities and or additional moderately priced dwelling units. Is that true?
The way that works is they have stated that there's more height than the FAR can get to. So in order to, they're willing to give more height if they provide, or rather more FAR, if they provide amenities such as parks, affordable housing, streets. There's a whole list. The MPDU requirement does allow you to punch through the mapped height, but typically it's only in 12-foot increments. So the board's just not going to give it to them for MPDUs. They only give it to the applicant if existing heights will not accommodate additional FAR, the FAR that the MPDUs provide. So typically it's about 12 feet. In some cases it's 24 feet, but it's never 50 feet
Right.
or 75 feet.
But it could be then 12 to 24 feet added to the heights.
It could
we're
be.
seeing
It
currently.
could be.
And-
And
Yeah, go ahead.
And I wanted to say that, let me jump back to a couple slides here. This is the village proposed 85 feet. And this is significant because the building types that exist or that are out there today are, I think it's type 3, which is stick built over podium. It's usually 5. They call it 5/1 or 5/2. And that typically gets you to about 75 to 85 feet. If you want to go higher, if you want to go to 100 feet, you have to go to a construction type, concrete construction. And to build a 100-foot tall concrete building is financially impossible or not feasible. And as I heard say, there's no such thing today as a 100-foot concrete building. And people just don't build them. So what's significant about this is if we were to give them 100 feet here, or if they were to get 100 feet approved, then with MPDUs, they could jump to 120 feet, which would make it feasible. So I think it's important that we try hard to keep it at 85 feet, because it's hard to, with MPDUs, it's hard to jump from 85 feet to 120 feet. There's just not enough MPDUs for that to happen.
Is there, and we're looking at these as kind of rectangular blocks,
Mhm.
appreciating that that's what the regulations or proposed maximum heights would allow. But is there any gabling that would occur in those units that would make it less of an abrupt change in the height?
Well, it's up to the applicant.
Yeah, okay, so,
Typically, I mean, the massing diagrams are kind of abrupt and they'll never look like this. If I were to render this, it would look a lot better, but it'd still be tall.
Yeah.
So the concern is not how beautiful they look, because I'm sure that Chevy Chase Lakes is going to do some beautiful designs. They have a record of doing some really nice work. Chevy Chase Lakes is done really well done. So it's not really whether the quality and aesthetics of the construction is how tall the buildings are and how they affect the community. Is that's a concern.
So John, a lot of residents along Grove in the buffer zone.
Want to go back to the other slide?
Oh,
That one?
that's fine. But a lot of residents in that most western part of the village have expressed concern about security.
Mhm.
And candidly, the access points that village residents currently have to development over
Right.
there.
It's here.
Yeah,
Here.
exactly.
and
It's
here.
really in western, like
Mhm.
across the park and the metro. I don't know I don't believe there's been an outcry of more access from Chevy Chase Village to whatever occurs there.
Right.
So I'm just wondering how much we can ensure or make sure that principle stays versus letting park and planning put parks and really try to eliminate the border of Chevy Chase Village from the commercial development. That's kind of their intent, right, from what you're saying?
Well,
Is they really want to open up?
no, I don't think it's
Oh.
a nefarious sort of intent. I think more like, you know, as an urban designer, I know, because I did this, I still do it. I worked for them for 15 years. It's the idea that you as a community would want access to this beautiful development. You would want to.
There's a counterpoint to that.
Well, let me finish.
I mean,
I mean, that's the argument I used when I did these exact kind of these same plans, like Westbard, for example. I worked on that plan and elsewhere. And the response was, we don't want access. And I thought, well, if you don't want access, it's not important that the people who move into the new development get access. Why would they go there? You know? So the reasoning that I had was fine, leave it closed off the way it is. And if the community later wants to have access, they can petition the property owners to do that. And I think that's probably the argument you need to make. We don't need it, and maybe we'll ask for it later. But right now, there's no reason. Does that make sense?
And you'll see when we get to the second to last slide in this presentation, some of the reinforcing points of what the current village position is, and that's one of them. That
right.
additional access points between the village and the collection is not necessary.
Good.
And that, to the point that the planning staff has made about trying to create greater access and awareness of Western Grove Park to the Friendship Heights area, we are suggesting better wayfinding signage, better signage from the collection property to navigate interested park users to the existing entrance, but that you don't need to create additional entrances to solve that perceived problem.
Good.
Yeah.
Okay, so this slide intended to show you what the sizes of a half acre and a 0.75 acre park look like. Actually, we don't have a half acre in here. This is the Chevy Chase Lake space. It's a 3/4 acre park, and you're familiar with this, I believe. It's the open space at the collection, and that's 0.2 acres. Now, something I want to point out is that often when we say open space, we mean everything hardscape, greenscape, grass, trees, as well as the streets that can be closed during festivals. And the point that Chevy Chase Village wants to make is, no, we want this to be an entirely green space, not composed of walkways and streets that can be open and closed.
You know the building heights on the left?
Yeah, this is roughly 75 feet. That would be type 3 construction. And this is 120 and around 110, and that would be concrete construction. And then these are Chevy Chase Village's recommendations. Do you want me to go through them or just hit the highlights?
Just highlights, I think.
Just the highlights, yeah.
Okay. So basically building massing, we've asked for lower heights at the Saks property, 85 feet height, starting at 45 feet, stepping back to 100 at 75 feet. So basically you have 75 feet of width to 45 and jumping up to 85. Connectivity, we want to maintain the existing pedestrian connection at Montgomery Street. Do not add any more pedestrian connections and add more wayfinding signage so that people can find their way around. The public parks and public spaces should be a minimum of 3/4 of an acre, not a half acre. And then the public space, the parks themselves should be not have a lot of active uses like, a pickleball or loud activities, more restive, more meditative spaces. Things like, bocce is pretty quiet. Opportunities for parks and fountains and benches and maybe a gazebo or pavilion. And then food truck opportunities along the perimeters. We mentioned wayfinding at Western Grove Park. And the last one is there is a need for public parking in the sector plan. So either publicly accessible parking within new private development or a public parking garage, or both.
If I can just highlight on that last point, I do think, at least from some of the feedback we've already seen from the planning board and some of the policy decisions that the county has made about properties that are proximal to metro stations, that last point is one I think we're probably going to need to really stress. People will park where it's easiest to park. We currently see that and are currently tackling that issue today with people visiting doctors' offices and commuting, what have you, that attempt to park on village streets. And so reinforcing the importance that this level of development and density has to be coupled with parking, not just in the sector plan area, but associated with the development on these sites, is really going to be critically important, or we're going to end up with a lot of parking saturation that we'll be constantly trying to manage. But we may have an uphill battle with that one that we should just be aware of.
Further board questions?
Yeah,
And then
just one. John and Shana, there was some rumor about them reorienting the road but that's not been in the sector plan anymore.
No, it is in the working draft, so we can go back to it is represented on a couple of these slides.
Okay.
I'll go all the way back. Zoom in, can you see this? So the sector plan does recommend reorienting Wisconsin Circle, which runs this way. Let me get my pointer here. Today, I guess it runs this way, and they're proposing to run it this way and around, and then to have a pedestrian access here. Okay. So how do I do that? I'll use a highlighter.
But-
I'm sorry, I can't figure it out.
About, this is the existing road.
Yeah.
right? And what they're showing here is a little more of a.
So it comes out where the entrance to collection on Western,
So-
is that right?
Excuse me?
So the entrance to the collection on Western is where that arrow is. correct?
Right here. So this is, follow my.
No, on the other side, on the western side.
Right.
Okay.
It's proposed to come this way.
Got it.
Today it goes like this.
Right.
They are also proposing a road here, and keeping this road here. Also another road up here that will serve these two buildings.
How speculative is that road change? Thinking that you're talking a wholesale change in the building around the Metro Center.
At this point, it's proposed.
Yeah.
But we have to wait and see what the planning board says and what the county council says. These plans do change.
Yeah.
As they move along.
Because that seems like it would just be a huge economic thing to bite off for Metro, the county, as well as the land company. So-
It is ambitious.
Yeah, okay.
The only issue with that drawing off of Western is the backup issue, right? We get backup all the way to Kirkside, even with that, with them going down to Wisconsin Circle and turning right. So if they're eliminating that and moving it east on Western, we're going to have more backup on Western. into the village.
Right.
That's a concern.
We have asked for traffic studies, see how this works. Something that could be proposed is adding another street cut through here. So instead of just one, you can have two, which is good urban design anyways. You know, the idea of creating a network of streets, small blocks. So instead of having arterials, you have more like a network or capillary action. You want to use that, the human body analogy. So, you know, a street here and a street here and even a street here would go a long way to solving that backup problem.
Right. Appreciating, we've got, I think, some residents in attendance who'd like to ask some questions as well. But if you could approach the microphone, and please be succinct to make sure we get a couple of folks' questions in. Anybody? And let us know who you are as well.
Hi, I'm Diane Cartelli. I live on Grove Street. And now that I'm closer, I think I see the roads you're having off Western. Is this proposal, it keeps the current driveway as it, and makes it a road?
Yes.
And then you're saying that better urban design means another road, possibly?
Yes. That would be my recommendation.
In the 1998 sector plan, Mr. Wolfarth and I protested the driveway being there, so I will resend that letter. Thank you.
And appreciating, as John described up front, there's a lot of opportunities still to influence this process with the planning board and after that, the county council. Yeah. Next up.
Hi, good evening. Dio Villar, I live on Montgomery Street, like on the western area. If you'll forgive me, I'm not a native speaker, so I might, stumble along the way with English, but I just had a couple of questions. I don't have really the bandwidth to follow this in detail, and I think most people living in, for what I talked to my neighbors also. But my general sense, so I moved to the village in 2020, like 6 years ago, and to me, I feel that we're constantly under siege since I moved here, constantly. I don't know if this has been the norm from you guys, but year after year, there's always some sort of new initiative to change things around here. This is very ambitious, so we're pretty worried. I think most people in my block are. Pressure on the infrastructure, sanitation, water, safety. Right? I mean, they're looking at, in the best case scenario, 85 foot height. I mean, what is that? Eight stories high floor? I mean, how many people are we?
6 or 7 stories.
So from the diagram that you showed us, what's your estimate of how many more people are we going to get in this area?
We haven't done that calculation.
But
number of units.
500?
Probably more than that. If this whole thing were built out, more than that.
So I'm just, imagine like all these people funneling through Montgomery Street, which is going to be the sole sort of channel. So we're already, like we were saying, we already have problems with people illegally parking on Montgomery. We're going to need a patrol car there 24/7 stationed there because it's with 500 more people. And from what I read from the plan, they're saying no parking, and we can ask for parking. But even they were talking about sub-level parking. We do have the experience from when they built the parking from the collection that some of the basements on Montgomery Street were damaged because of the vibrations generating from excavating all that. That's years of litigation. So for me, my worry, again, I'm an economist. I don't know anything about this. So when I read this, it's written in a way, like a very bureaucratic way, almost to kind of lose people along the way. But the feeling I got was that this is terrible for us. This is going to change the village. And there's the risk that it will create two villages, the village in the periphery and the village in the center. And those people in the periphery, think about the people, along the Belmont Street. They're basically going to have no privacy, almost maybe, no sunlight if they build those mammoth buildings there. But then again, I don't know what the village can do about this. And so me wanting to come here was also trying to ask the village, if we could, I didn't know that we had asked for 80, 85 rather than 120. I don't know who made that decision. So I think I'm not the only one because I've asked all my neighbors and nobody really knows what's going on, even though everyone is affected on that. I don't know what the best.
Couple of thoughts,
Yeah.
if I may. So the board tonight is just hearing kind of an update on the plan, and there's no vote to be taken by the board or either for or against a particular position. So just so you know that there will probably be future occasions where the board will be taking a position that will have a pretty open-ended hearing. So just to be clear that these are still plans in a medium stage, would be my way of thinking about it, with further input to come over the next few months. And that there'll be additional opportunities both for residents to express to the board here, as well as to the planning board, as well as to the county council down the road, kind of pros and cons. So that's just one thing is.
But when John was saying that we asked for 85 feet rather than 120, who is we?
The board.
Right. So there was some process in which
Yeah,
85
fair point,
was.
based on the prior discussions.
Okay.
So I just want to be clear. that
I had
we're-
no
yeah,
idea
yeah.
that had happened. Maybe I missed it but I've asked my neighbors on Montgomery, which are going to be, primarily affected by all this, and nobody knew. So I don't know, like, for example, like a table saying like what they want, what we propose, that would be great to summarize, to distill all that, because there's so much information in this 145-page document that was circulating. Nobody with a job has really, I also have small kids. I don't have time to go through all that. So distilling that information, that would be useful. What I did read in that document was that they were proposing no schools, like no extra schools, because in the document, it says something that I remember there was a table that Somerset Westbrook had spare capacity, but I'm confused because in 2021, Montgomery was rezoned
Right, no,
from
I-
Somerset to Westbrook.
I'm with you on that. We
So
fought that.
somebody,
Um,
either I misunderstood or somebody's lying, because there seems to be no capacity in the school. So how can they say that, we're going to put 600 more people there and everything is just going to go dandy?
I think just in the interest of time, because I do think you're raising all good concerns that the board wants to hear and will also have further opportunities to hear. I just don't know that tonight is the night to express all of those concerns. In terms of how one would be aware of this already, of course, we publish a lot in the crier with online links to this. I hear you, that's complicated. Is there a way to make this digestible? Actually, the board letters to the planning board do a pretty good job of saying, here's what we're aware of, here's what we're concerned about, here's what we want to know next. So the board letters on this matter, which are circulated, posted online, are a pretty good source of information. Also, I think it's important to keep in mind the time frame. This sector plan is how many years looking out? 20?
Oh, yeah, it's a 20 year.
Right. So Geico has had a sector plan in effect since 1998 also. Do I have that right? That it's
The last
so, and nothing happened. So this is what the land company is thinking about, looking ahead 20 years. It's not what they're thinking about. Now, we said, gee, Saks might happen sooner because of the, it's just a vacant property right now. But this is looking out a 20-year time frame. This is not something that'll happen, starting in 2 years, that we're going to see all of this redevelopment overnight. Also worth keeping in mind, when each of these would come up, so suppose the Chevy Chase Land Company wanted to act on this, what additional approvals would be required at that time? It's not just a by right, go to it.
No,
CCLC, right?
there's 3 steps. There's preliminary plan, there's sketch
Right.
plan, there's site plan.
So
you have
there's
to give-
before
yes.
any of this would happen, there will be a lot of additional input and opportunity to,
Right.
prevent bad things from happening. So I just wanted to reassure you that this isn't something that's happening in 2 years if we don't get in the way.
And keep in mind, there's existing a bus terminal here owned by WMATA, and that has to be resolved before anything happens. And that's a huge infrastructure project that will take years. So to Lou's point, this area here, probably not going to happen for a very long time, if at all.
So some reassurance.
But it
And
also
I
would
think we
be
have a couple more
just
folks
a-
behind you. that
just
can
one last
push it.
question is, what's interesting, because I'm not an expert, is what is the sort of, what can the village, basically refrain from accepting? Can we say no to anything, or we have to negotiate everything because,
Yeah,
My-
zoning authority, I don't know how this works.
My experience is that saying no doesn't get you very far. You don't get listened to. You're more effective if you go in and you negotiate. You say, these are the things we want. These are the things we'll accept in exchange for those things we want. And most stakeholders, most developers are willing to work with you and talk to you.
And the Chevy Chase Land Company, from our experience, I think, has been a pretty good partner in a lot of these things. Remains to be seen. We want that to continue. Additionally, there is the planning board, the county council, and as John had mentioned at the beginning, we will have, in addition to our incumbent District 1 County Councilman Andrew Friedson, we'll have a new county council representative starting in early January after the elections. These are people who will be eager to hear our input in addition to the 4 at-large county council representatives.
And the whole council votes on this.
Yeah, so there's a lot of opportunity. So do we have a formal right as a village to say, no, we're not going along with that, and you can't do it? But I think as John's describing, and as the board has discussed in the past, that there's a dialogue that takes place, that we do have a lot of opportunity to influence things even before the political process. But I think we should open things up to other folks who are also kind of in line behind you there. Thank you. Thanks for the good questions.
Hi, Mary Sheehan, 30 West Street. I have a much more granular question than the large ones you're currently discussing. When you're coming, if I understand this correctly, if you're driving down Western, okay, going toward Wisconsin, there is the possibility of having 1, 2, or 3 places to turn right.
No, right now they're only proposing 1.
Well, but we're talking about, you said
I
there's a
suggested that
possibility of a third.
That would solve the second. That would solve a backup problem, and it's good urban design.
Well, I guess that's what I want to probe a little bit. Let's just say there are 3. So you're coming down Western, you want to make a right turn and get yourself over to Wisconsin. So I'm in my car. Am I going to take all 3 of those roads? First of all, if I understand this, they're all going to lead to the same east-west road. You're going to go 1 block or 1 building, not a block. You're going to go 1 building and then make a left turn.
Or you can go this way.
So you've got,
Go this way.
well, I'm not entirely clear, but my point is,
It's a
if
road.
you've got the potential of 3 streets feeding up into 1 street where everybody's going to want to turn left to get over to Wisconsin, right? So I'm coming down Western. Am I going to take the first right because maybe that backup isn't so bad, but there is a backup there. So I'm going to leapfrog around that backup. I'm going to go to the 2nd street and see how bad the backup is there. And if it's bad, I'm going to leapfrog around that and I'm going to go up to the furthest place where I can turn right. This sounds like a plate of spaghetti to me. I don't see how this improves.
Well, I think we should just be clear though, right now, the planning staff is simply recommending taking the 1 right that you would make currently onto Wisconsin Circle, moving that farther east and creating a new road. So that's a 1-for-1 trade. What John was suggesting is that through the urban planning, it could become 2. 3 is not on the table at all.
Well,
Plan-
it's
Not even 2.
It's not on the table, but you're imagining it.
I'm
Let's
not
put
with the
it
planning
that way.
department. So I'm working for Chevy Chase Village. So that's what the planning department has proposed 1 road. Okay, maybe I shouldn't have said
Which is
2.
probably the
because
extent of what we
Right.
should focus on
Right.
now, because that's the only thing that's.
I didn't mean to
table
muddy the water.
Would be a 1-for-1 replacement of Wisconsin Circle with a new entry and longer road path back over to Wisconsin.
Okay. All right, I'll let it rest there.
Okay. Any other?
Just a reflection, all this would have substantial impacts to your point, you have a bunch of people trying to get to River Road to take Wisconsin Circle. And if that's no longer there, you're going to really congest a lot. So really, we have to do a lot of traffic. I think we have to do some traffic studies on how the village, if it really gets to a point where they are proposing a new street going in, we got to look at, what impact it's going to have. In addition to looking at it from a planning standpoint.
Yeah.
John, the new road makes the additional entrances to Western Park seem mystified. Because you're going to have this giant street. How would people have to cross this major thoroughfare to then get into the park? It just actually makes no sense at all.
I'm not sure what your question is.
Okay, we're talking about creating a new road where.
Right here? This road you mean?
Yes.
It's the road that right now is the entrance into.
The parking lot.
Yes, okay, so that's not gonna be, that's gonna become a major road.
Right, a real road is
A
supposed to.
real road carrying a lot of traffic.
Right.
Okay, well, if you're turning into there from Western, on the right-hand side, you've got Western Road Park. They're proposing to open that to what? This major street? That makes like no sense. Why would you?
Crosswalk in the city. You wait for the light.
I would just note, one of our virtual attendees has asked, how is there room for green space if that road is redirected? I think that may be aligned with the point, Mr. Goodman, that you were just mentioning.
There seems to be enough room for a green space in a road. Let me see if I can find, let me go back to the. So the road would come here and then the green space would be here. It'd be a long rectangular space.
Cursor's not showing up again
Oh,
on the screen.
sorry. Keep doing that, sorry.
Are you looking at the Western Grove and the parking lot?
Yeah, let me go to another. So this is where the road would go, and this would be the green space. So there is room for both. The distance between here and there is I think 180 feet or roughly. So there's room.
That would be better. I mean, if it were back there, then you've got further distance between.
Right. I mean,
that and the wall where the park is in Western.
right. I don't think they're proposing it coming up here. And I think the problem with these big sort of big diagrams is they're very diagrammatic and you tend to read into too much to them. I think this kind of model helps show you exactly what they're proposing. So it would be better if it was here instead of there.
I think it's appropriate to think of that then as being roughly where the truck entrance is for the grocery store,
Right.
more so than the current vehicle entrance into the shopping
Right.
center.
That would definitely be better.
Current entrance is right here. And I
Right.
think they're proposing it moving it this way, but it's
Yeah.
80 feet, 100 feet.
Which is currently about where the truck entrance is.
Yes, yes.
You now can take, that entrance and actually get on to Wisconsin.
Right,
By
and
Clyde.
I wonder if that's part of what may have inspired
Right,
this proposed configuration, but it comes currently just north of course, the intersection at Willard that it becomes on the other side of Wisconsin Avenue. So this would align you a little bit farther south to align with that existing intersection. But yes, somewhat patterned off of the current configuration that you could take if you wanted to bypass Wisconsin Circle.
Yeah.
We should probably move on. We still have a pretty
Yeah.
lengthy list of things to cover. And appreciating the input from the board and residents here tonight, but there will be a lot of additional discussion on this to come. this is an update, no decision being taken tonight. So
And just to reinforce
Yeah.
what's on the screen, the 2 public hearings have been tentatively announced for the planning board. These are as it's presented in the staff memo, these are the dates and times that staff is recommending. These will essentially be ratified by the planning board when they meet on July 16th to receive the formal presentation from the planning staff. So key dates, people should, and we will of course have a link to the recording of it, but people should watch the July 16 presentation from the planning staff to the planning board. They should plan to participate in the 2 public hearings. One will be in Wheaton at the planning board's headquarters on the 10th. The second, they're actually bringing the planning board to our area, to the BCC Regional Services Center. That will be unfortunately the same night as the village's board meeting in September, but that will be a second opportunity. Testimony does not need to be formal. Testimony can simply be impassioned concerns about the effects of this level of density. You do not need to speak the zoning speak that the planners do and that the planning board does. This is an opportunity for them to hear the concerns from the community. So residents should take advantage of that and also continue to write in. We ask that residents copy me so that we're aware of the concerns that our residents have, but please do write in. Getting feedback in volume from residents can be more impactful to the planning board than a single letter from the village board. So continue to write in and make your voices heard.
I have one more. I received some questions from my neighbors
Okay.
about the presentation.
let's go one more question and
So,
we gotta move on.
and it incorporates what Diego mentioned, which there hasn't really, we don't feel, I live on Grove Street, I'm Diane Cartelio. We don't feel there's really been a robust discussion about the height on the collection. It was sort of just like an automatic, yes, the village is okay with this. And I think it has great implications for the park. The park vistas are crucial. I learned that there's a formula about park vistas. And so to ignore a park the village supported that has been spent $6.2 million and totally ignore what makes an urban park and why it's a legacy park. The heights.
But I'm gonna cut you off, I'm afraid, just to say your point's well taken, and we need more discussion.
Okay.
You know, I'm right with you. I think this board is probably right with you too, but I don't think tonight is the
No,
night to raise
but-
the issue.
But what I'm saying is all the implications of height, no one discussed.
Yeah.
I think you went along with the proposal and you didn't really evaluate it. And so I feel you need to evaluate the heights on the collection level.
Just to clarify, the board's official position about the heights of the collection is to say that the 200-foot heights proposed for the remainder of the collection property are unreasonably high adjacent to our R60 zone neighborhoods. And the board's specific request was that the eastern edge of the entire collection property be capped at a height, a max height of 60 feet. That's where the
We're on
board's
record
position is.
opposing the proposed heights. We
Right.
are on record opposing those heights, and there will be more discussion to come. And I'm looking at Michelle as well as John in terms of future discussions. Okay, next on the agenda, contract and agreement authorizations, starting with traffic engineering.
Yeah, so bear with me as
Yeah,
I
yeah.
flip myself to that matter. So as a way of background, the village board received a petition last year in September from residents of the 100 and 200 blocks of Primrose Street expressing their concerns about cut-through traffic. In May of this year, residents on the block submitted a supplemental memo outlining specific recommendations that they had to resolve those concerns. The village's traffic committee met. They held a public meeting on May 28, 2026 to consider the petition and to hear from residents. They have since issued a series of recommendations one of which includes access restrictions along all village streets that intersect with Western Avenue as a means to cut down on cut-through traffic. They have also made some recommendations related to improved signage and a reduction in the posted speed limit in the 100 and 200 blocks of Primrose Street from the existing 25 to 15 miles per hour. There's also a pending assessment that we had of sightline concerns within the 100 block of Primrose Street that the committee also recommended that we implement some recommendations that had previously been issued. So in consideration of the Primrose Street petition, the traffic committee also heard from residents of Broad Branch Road and Newland Street, who also expressed concerns about cut-through traffic. That was followed up with a formal petition from those residents requesting access restrictions on their street as well. Rather than taking these petitions independently, we have essentially kind of grouped them together since at the heart are the same underlying issues of cut-through traffic and high volume and speed. And so the staff is recommending that in light of the recommendations from the traffic committee, that we hire an independent, objective traffic engineer to conduct an assessment of the potential impacts if the traffic committee's recommendations were to be implemented. A traffic engineer will also have the capacity to assist the village in implementing efforts to mitigate GPS navigation to these streets and to coordinate with the District of Columbia's Department of Transportation to obtain approval for new or relocated signage within the district's public right of way. We have been limited as to where we can put signage on the streets that intersect with Western Avenue because Western Avenue's right of way line comes inside the curb by approximately 30 feet along Western Avenue. Where signage would be most effective, of course, would be much closer to Western Avenue before vehicles have committed to making the turn onto village streets. But in order to do that, we would need to coordinate with DC in order to get their authorization to place those signs within their public right of way. So staff has reached out to the traffic group, which is a leading traffic engineering firm that the village has worked with, as have many of our neighboring municipalities. We've asked them for proposals to conduct an assessment of, one, the potential impacts from the village traffic committee's recommendations for streets located east of Connecticut Avenue in the village. The total estimate for that is approximately $47,000. And then to do a second study of the existing rush hour access restriction signage that exists in the town of Chevy Chase, our neighbors to the north, that exist along their streets that intersect with Connecticut Avenue, to study the current level of violations that are occurring there as a benchmark for the potential viability of an access restriction here in the village. The town of Chevy Chase is also interested in having that data set run, and they have agreed to split the cost of that secondary study with us. So the total cost of that study is estimated at $12,500 for what would be a 3-day study with crews actually on the street, counting vehicles who make illegal turns during those rush hour restrictions, but we would share that cost 50-50 with the town of Chevy Chase. Staff is also recommending an override of the village's competitive bidding requirements. The code requires that we do a competitive bidding process for contracts exceeding $10,000. Staff is recommending that given that these issues have been in existence for a while, we have recommendations from our traffic committee. We want to move as expeditiously as possible to study the proposed recommendations. And so we're recommending an override, which would allow the board to waive the competitive bidding requirements, make a decision this evening on the proposals in hopes that we will have the studies conducted and a report back from the traffic engineers by mid-October so that you could then bring this forward for public hearing and consideration in November. I would just add that we do have our the proposed traffic engineer joining us virtually, and he will speak briefly about what their process and study and methodology would look like. I would just note that all of the materials related to Primrose Street, including our previous traffic studies that our police department has done with showing vehicle speeds and volumes, as well as the petitions and other supporting materials that we have received from the residents of the 100 and 200 blocks of Primrose, as well as the residents of Broad Branch Road and Newland Street, have all been provided to our traffic engineer to ensure that they had a full understanding of the residents' concerns. So they have had an opportunity to review that volume of materials, and we'll talk about their proposed study methodology as a result of that. So if it's okay with you, I'll turn it over to Paul Dorr from the traffic group, unless you have any questions for me.
No, just emphasis on the Six Sigmas, given the
Yes.
hour.
Yes. Mr. Dorr?
Hi, is it possible I can share my screen just to go over on a map, I guess? Is that possible?
Let me.
If not, I can just do an intro. So hi, my name is Paul Dorr, and I'm the Director of Engineering Design here at the Traffic Group. Yeah, I can share now. Okay, everyone see my screen? It shows up on my.
You might just want to go ahead and talk to it.
Okay. So like I said, I'm Paul Dorr, Director of Engineering. I've been with the company for 38 years. I lead a team of designers and traffic engineers here. We are traffic engineering professional traffic operations engineers, along with a bunch of land planners. So we have provided two proposals to the village. One to look at turning restrictions along Connecticut Avenue between the hours of 7 to 9. So we provided, again, our proposal to conduct turning movements to determine what those violations are along Connecticut Avenue above Rosemary up to just a little bit south of Maryland 410. Nationally, about 50% of turning violations are observed. And if there's some reasonable police presence, those turning cut-through traffic could be reduced down 80%. So at the end of that study, we will have all the traffic turning movements, and we can tell you what the violations are for the community north of Bradley. And again, assuming the national average is 50%, so we can also, just show what that percentage of cut-through traffic is based upon our data from that study. The other study, so we can't see my screen?
The virtual attendees can, but we cannot in the room.
Oh, okay. So we are looking at conducting a cut-through traffic volume speed study, looking at all the intersections, basically south of Primrose Street, all the way down where Western Avenue and Maryland 185 come together. And we've listed all those intersections within our proposal. And what we're going to do is we're going to use a program called Replica. If we were to go out today and conduct our own traffic counts, where we would count every vehicle movement at every intersection, at the end of the day, we would have a lot of data, but we really would not know where those vehicles are coming and going from. So what we're going to use is we're going to use a program called Replica. And what that does, it allows us to use data from fall of last year and spring of this year on any given Thursday and a Saturday. And what that allows us to do is we can flow those traffic volumes through the community based upon historical information and come up with recommendations based upon real good cut through, real good traffic speed volume, and turning movements. So that's the goal of the study, including Primrose, all the way down to where Western and 185 comes together. We did receive a lot of information. I think it's like a dozen different items. I have emails going back 10 years from 2015 to 2025. I have other traffic companies' reports, accident information, and a lot of concerns for various residents. And we recognize, the concerns. A lot of cut-through traffic, a lot of speeding. And one of the great things about making turning restrictions during peak hours, like I said, it does reduce the volumes of cutting through the neighborhood, and those reductions will in fact reduce accident potential, and speeding gets cut down because half of those folks will not be coming into the community. Also, when left turns are restricted along major streets, that reduces accidents along the major streets by 60%, just restricting those left turns during peak hours. So at the end of coming up with all the data, we will make recommendations. We will prepare plans that address a lot of the residents' concerns over the years. We will look at one-way design scenarios. We will look at possibly some additional traffic calming. While there is a sufficient amount, there's quite a bit of speed humps out there today. Looking at turn restrictions. Again, whatever the data tells us at the end of the data collection, we will address every issue that comes out of that data.
Thank you. And thanks for that. And as you already appreciate, this is an important subject for the village and also for the residents of Primrose, Broad Branch, Newlands, Oxford Streets all together. I think have a keen interest in getting the results of the traffic study fairly soon, and a report that the board could then act on. And are there any board questions for our guest? And I know we might have a resident or two who wanted to speak briefly on the subject as well. Board questions? And Mr. Ullman, if you wanted to kind of also just make sure the board was aware of a few aspects of it.
Yes, thank you. My name is Craig Ullman. I have lived at 104 Primrose Street for 37 years. Last fall, I made the fatal mistake of permitting some of my neighbors to talk me into playing a coordinating role for what are now referred to as the Primrose Street petitioners. The rest is history. Let me, in light of time constraints, just focus on a memo that I believe you have in your packages that was distributed just this afternoon, which is a memo doing nothing more than commenting on the two proposed agreements between the village and the traffic group, making a series of pretty specific recommendations, some of them technical that I'm quite sure your council will be able to deal with, and I won't dwell on them, but let me hit perhaps four that are worth highlighting. First of all, as to what I'll call the major agreement for the traffic study. As Mr. Dorr, if I had his name right, mentioned, that agreement includes a list of 11 named intersections to be studied. Well, that list is incomplete. It misses two. It misses the intersection of Primrose Street and Brookville Road. It misses the intersection of Newlands Street and Broad Branch. Those are inflection points for the cut-through traffic on the east side. So those both need to be studied. The principal agreement doesn't expressly provide for the engineers to make site visits. I assume they plan to do so, but that ought to be made clear. It's especially important on Primrose Street because of its unique challenges. And frankly, if the traffic engineers are so inclined, some of us would be happy to meet them when they make those site visits. And important to make those site visits on during rush hours on days when schools are in session. Pedestrian traffic, frankly, is a big issue, particularly on Primrose Street. The principal agreement calls for the engineers to make a detailed review of all information provided. And both Mr. Dorr and Shana have mentioned that there's a large volume of material. That material needs to be identified, either in what the traffic group produces or the village can identify it, but it's going to be important to make sure that it is as comprehensive as it should be. As I think Shana has mentioned, it goes back a long way, but we want to make sure it includes everything. And on a similar note, the principal agreement makes a reference, it includes a modest budget for identified meetings and hearings, but then it doesn't identify any meetings and hearings. And those should certainly include a public meeting after the traffic group's report has been submitted and before the board is asked to make any decisions on the traffic committee's recommendations. Perhaps all of that is understood.
And to that point, not to interrupt you, but to that point, not to get ahead of the traffic committee, which will, also be reviewing this, but I think that we are targeting a November discussion at the board meeting, by which time we'll have the results of the traffic study. So we'll be in good shape. And so mark calendars now for the November board meeting in
November 9th.
November 9th. So that would be, and looking to keep this thing moving forward and looking to have the report and be able to hear residents' inputs at that meeting for sure. But
Yeah,
okay.
no,
Yeah.
that's fine. Thank you.
Okay.
And by the way, if it isn't clear, I mean, we endorse, frankly, we commend the staff for getting things moving as they are. And we're not by any means suggesting that the village should not enter into these contracts. We're just making specific suggestions about what should be in the contracts. And we're fussing about what information is provided and about hearings, in part because frankly, there's been reference to the previous assessment that was done back in 2023. And that assessment really was not very thorough. It did not include anything like all of the data that the village has available. It reached findings for which there was no support. The document doesn't even have a date. The board actually considered it in I believe, March of 2023. But that's that, and the fact that it includes some 2022 data is the only way you can point to it. So I'm quite confident that I'm very hopeful that the traffic group will do a much more comprehensive, serious job. But I think it's important that the data, what they are looking at, be clearly identified, and that there be an opportunity for people to discuss their report before the board is asked to make any decisions. And then one final example, and it actually relates to the first study that Mr. Dorr mentioned, and that is the agreement to study the efficacy of the turning restrictions in the town of Chevy Chase. And as Mr. Dorr correctly described, what the contract provides for is simply counting violations, basically, counting the number of instances in which vehicles make prohibited turns into the town of Chevy Chase during the peak hours. Now, I am only a superannuated English major with a law degree, so maybe I don't understand, but I fail to understand how you can determine the efficacy of restrictions based on nothing more than counting the number of violations. Presumably, you also have to have some way of measuring compliance. That is, how many cars might have turned into the village, but don't because of those restrictions. Now, you obviously can't count hypothetical cars that didn't make an illegal turn, but there are some data that you could use. You could certainly count the number of cars that do turn into those town streets during the hours when the restrictions are not in effect. You could also count the number of cars that turn into Rosemary Street where there are no restrictions at all hours, and then use those to come up with some estimates.
And I think that's a fair point, and I'm going to bet that if Mr. Dorr is still on the line,
Yes.
He probably has a methodology. And without going into a lot of detail, you've probably heard that question and probably believe it's an addressable issue.
Yes, I do want to say I do have the comments that are being talked about, and I will gladly go through those. If we were to count all the traffic 24 hours a day, and include intersections along Bradley, Rosemary, and even on 410 to determine what those traffic vehicles are going around the turning restrictions, first of all, it would cost about 10 times the cost of this study just to do those additional turning movement counts for 24 hours a day. But mainly, it would be impossible to tell who is going where without an origin and destination study, where you would know, in fact, who is going where at what time. Again, what I mentioned earlier is that it's a national average that the turning movements between 7 to 9 is about a 50% folks obeying it, 50% not obeying it. So whatever our total hourly counts are at each intersection from 7 to 8 and 8 to 9, we could pretty much double it and say those folks are, following the restrictions and accessing the community in a different route, without spending another $60,000-$70,000 to just come up with that figure. So that's
a common practice, what you're describing in terms of applying those national averages.
correct.
Yes. Okay.
Because we're trying to determine if these type of 7 to 9, 4 to 6 restrictions down along Western is something that we can do, and it's going to help the community. And in fact, it would, just with a reasonable amount of police assistance, that 50% goes up to 80% compliancy. And that reduces all the problems that you're currently having along Primrose and all your other streets. Because again, if you restrict just at Primrose, the traffic's going to redirect to the other streets. So we really believe at the end of the day, the turning restrictions will have a substantial impact, safety impact for the community.
So that's probably the immediate answer on that question, and of course, there will be both the opportunity, I think, that staff will be working with the traffic group leading up to the study to kind of make sure these issues are being addressed. And then the staff, as well as the traffic committee, will be able to review the report. And then November 9th, making sure that any outcome of that report is readily discussed and openly discussed here, because I think that's where, I think there's a lot of sympathy for the folks on Primrose and the neighboring streets that, we got to get some kind of improvement in the situation going. So
if I can answer two other of the main questions. So we will have truck data. We will have the percentages of semi-trailers versus single unit trucks like FedEx and UPS and things like that. We will conduct site visits during school hours and look at pedestrian flow. That was another question.
Why don't we call it that?
The one I wanted to highlight was, I think the first thing you said was that there were 2 intersections that weren't included in the list.
Oh, yes. And we will substitute. We did duplicate one as item F. So we will add Brookville Road and Primrose, and then the other intersection, we will add that to the proposal.
Okay, and that the reason I asked that is that we have the motion we're about to make. It involves a not to exceed price. Do those streets
They won't change the price.
Okay.
That's our mistake for not including those. But again, I want to emphasize that we will flow traffic in all directions from east to west, west to east, north to south, through all the road network, and we will have speeds and traffic volumes for the entire road network at the end of the day. So just know that we'll have all the intersections covered.
All right, thank you.
Okay. And thank you, Craig, and thank you for the your neighbors for the attention to detail you're putting on this. And I think we're going to see a reliable and thorough discussion and study to come. So, thanks for the effort and appreciating that.
Thank you.
It affects your quality of life on these streets. Yeah. Really quickly, but sorry to be pushing things along given how late it's gotten.
My name is Walter Reich. I've lived at 200 Primrose Street for 50 years. And I just want to stress, and I'm a doctor. I just want to stress that this is actually, in real terms, a matter of life and death. Because there are children running around. There are places where there are no sidewalks. All of these details are very, very important to accomplish this end, this important end. But sooner or later, somebody's going to get hurt. And I just wanted to bring that dimension of the issue in.
Thank you. No, I think that personally, I think that's the critical point to keep in mind is that these are not just too much traffic on a street. This is also kind of people's families and kids playing in their yards. What risk are they facing? Thank you. And is there a motion then in terms of the studies?
Move to authorize an override of the competitive bidding requirements and to authorize the village manager to enter into a contract in substantially the form provided and subject to review by the village council with the traffic group incorporated for the performance of a traffic analysis pursuant to the recommendation of the village traffic committee in an amount not to exceed $47,000 and an assessment of the efficacy of existing access restriction signage along Connecticut Avenue in the town of Chevy Chase in an amount not to exceed $6,250.
Lou, I'm recusing myself.
Okay. Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
And all in favor, including Ms. Willard, please make your views known. All in favor, aye.
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 We have a four in favor and a recusal. The motion passes.
And we don't need five for this override.
One sec, good question.
We're waiting to know if there's a red card or a yellow card.
Sorry.
We do have five, don't we?
We have, but one recusal means we only have
Oh,
one
I'm sorry.
vote.
Yeah.
I don't know if Alyssa might have joined us late in the game.
Yeah, that's what
Alyssa,
I was
if you
just
wanna chime
looking
in.
at. No.
I'm pulling it up too, I think.
I think we actually do.
Video assisted replay.
Sorry.
No, that's okay. It's not a frequent situation. and
Yes,
we've
it
had a
does
couple of folks
require
out.
five,
Okay.
24:15.
Yeah. Next.
Let me, what I could, well, let me ask you. Can we try to get one of the absent board members to join by the end for that vote?
Of the meeting? Certainly.
Yes.
Or could we do this? Would you be comfortable just voting on the ability to override
Oh, good point. We could take it as two
Yeah,
separate
okay.
votes. Override the competitive bidding process as a separate vote from the contract. Can we do that?
Yeah, I could
What are
vote for
you,
that.
what are you voting on then?
We're voting on, so we go in, four of us could,
Four of us could vote on the actual contract, but five of us could vote on whether the board can override.
But it's not properly in front of you if you haven't gone out to bid. It's not properly in front of you unless you override. So I don't think you can separate those two things out.
Then an alternative would be if we're able to get a fifth board member or an additional board member on the line in the next little
You can
while.
just table it till the end of the meeting.
Yeah. And Shane, if you've got, you and your team are sending out some messages.
Yep.
And
Okay, I think we can move on for now
Yeah.
and then let's circle back
Yeah,
and hopefully
agreed.
one
Yep.
of the two of them are
no,
able to.
that sounds
join
good.
us.
And then that kind of brings us on to, Shana, the next item is regarding the inlets access. And is that something we should discuss tonight, or can that be deferred until the next meeting? Because I don't know how urgent, how pressing that is.
I will describe it in 60 seconds, but
Okay.
out of deference to our friends in the town of Chevy
Fair
Chase
enough.
who are hoping to
Right,
get an
yep.
answer from us following this meeting, I think we should proceed. Bottom line is the town of Chevy Chase is looking to stand up a photo speed enforcement program on Bradley Lane along the westbound side. They cannot do that independently and have a full functioning program that allows them to access the criminal justice information system without an ORI, which is a number that is assigned to police departments. And so they have come to us and asked if we can be a sponsor for them to get an ORI issued to them through the Maryland State Police. And so we would need to execute this through two vehicles if the board is so inclined to agree to this. The first thing would be for the board to authorize the police chief, which is the only signing, authorizing individual that the state police will recognize for the purposes of this type of MOU, to sign into the MOU to state that we would sponsor the town of Chevy Chase to be issued this ORI number. The second thing that we would need to execute is an agreement that I circulated to the board earlier today, hard copies of which are at your places. That would be between the village and the town of Chevy Chase, making it very clear the conditions of our sponsorship. I think a couple of the key elements there are that it is a 2-year term during which the town of Chevy Chase would need to get authorization for a sponsor, preferably through Montgomery County Police or through another department. The agreement also makes it clear that we have the right to exit this agreement and to exit the MOU with the state of Maryland, either for cause or for convenience to us. It also limits the photo speed enforcement program to Bradley Lane. If the town of Chevy Chase were to desire putting speed cameras elsewhere, they would have to come back to us to have the agreement modified. So this really does put a lot of constraints on, I should say, limitations on what could be done by the town.
What I wasn't entirely clear about when I read this was, are we suggesting that one of our police, presumably Eric, would actually be looking at their citations and?
No, we would have no involvement whatsoever in the operation of their speed program. They would still need to go through Montgomery County Police, likely through the off-duty police officer that they already have that does contract policing in their jurisdiction for the actual processing of the citations. The only village involvement would be our sponsorship for them to get the required access number to get into the criminal justice database for the purposes of running tags.
When I
No
start-
other involvement
When
whatsoever.
I started reading this, I assumed that what was going to happen was that they were going to pay us something to have us actually review theirs as well.
Yeah.
Try to review the pay with also.
That was actually an initial request that they made at the staff level that we said that we did not, we were not at the staff level comfortable with standing that up. So this is an offshoot to try to still stand up their program. Part of why they would like us to decide on, the board to decide on this evening is that they're hoping to get their program stood up and ready to go by the time schools go back into session.
Well, when I read it, I thought this was pretty thoroughly vetted.
Yeah, as long as it
Yeah,
excludes
I'm comfortable with it.
Connecticut, right?
But-
For now,
but
yes.
that's the real board.
Has the town of Chevy Chase seen this draft and are they okay?
They have a couple nips and tucks to it that they're requesting, but it wouldn't be anything really
The
substantive.
substance and the limitations they're
Right, they're
okay
okay,
with
correct.
and we're on good relations. with
They
them.
don't have a council approval at this point, but I think their attorney's recommending and their managers.
It's nicely drafted.
And Shayna, it's a 2-year term, but also if they were able to route this through Montgomery County instead of through us sooner than that, would that also apply?
Absolutely. We then have the ability to terminate the contract. I think it's 30 days.
Yes.
Yes.
If
It's
Montgomery
whichever-
County can fill
whichever
this
first
gap.
occurs.
Yeah.
Whichever first occurs, if they get a deal made with
Yeah.
another jurisdiction to do this, that's when it happens. Under the MOU with the state, either party can end the relationship within 30 days. So that's the timeframe we're sticking with in terms of everything else.
And Chief, you're aware of this and feel good about
Absolutely.
helping?
It's fine. There's no real lift on our piece. It's very limited involvement for us. We're just kind of almost like vouching for somebody.
Is there a motion? Thank you.
Yes. I move to authorize the village police chief to sign a memorandum of understanding on behalf of the village police department in the village in substantially the form provided and subject to review by village council with Maryland State Police to sponsor the town of Chevy Chase to receive an originating agency identifier for access to the NLETS system in support of its photo speed monitoring program on Bradley Lane, and to authorize the village manager to enter into an agreement in substantially the form provided and subject to review by village council with the town of Chevy Chase regarding the sponsorship.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
And 5 in favor, opposed? Hearing none, the motion passes. Thanks. Shayna, where to next?
So next, we're going to look at Resolution 7126. The long and short of this proposed ordinance is to amend the personnel code. The principal reason was to codify the board's authorization of a new paid parental leave policy. This was something that the board authorized as a part of the FY27 budget discussions. And so it's reflected in the budget. This would be codifying it as an additional form of compensation for eligible staff. As we try to do, council and I try to do, whenever we are making amendments to a chapter of the code, we go back and look in our notes and say, what are other things that we've needed to clean up in that particular chapter of the code? And so what you see here are a series of things that align with current practice. For instance, removing the Director of Public Works from the definition for exempt employees. We had done work several years ago to confirm that our Director of Public Works does not meet the IRS definition for an exempt employee. We've been operating accordingly. We just needed to update the code. It was a small enough thing that we didn't need an ordinance just to do that. But since we're making other changes to the personnel code, it's timely for us to do that at this point. Other changes that are listed in my staff report, I'm conscious of time. I won't go through in detail, but all of these changes align our code with what has been our practice or clarifies provisions that were unclear. The last thing that we're doing here is also attempting to remove gender references throughout the chapter. We've done that in other chapters where references to he or she are being replaced with employee or village manager, et cetera. And so that is a kind of a wholesale change that we're also recommending for this chapter to align it with other chapters of the code that we have updated in recent years to make them gender neutral. Anything, Sue Ellen, that you would like to add to that? And again, happy to go into detail about any of the specific changes, but again, just trying to be cognizant of the hour.
I move to adopt resolution number 070126 as drafted.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
5 in favor, no opposed. Motion passes. Next up, I think we're moving on to some board appointments.
And if anyone is so brave, you can take these all together. The first would be to reappoint Mr. Crockett to continue serving as building officer in that role. Mr. Crockett is responsible for countersigning all right-of-way license agreements and administrative special permit and variance cases that come before us. We also have.
It's exciting.
Don't fight him for it. Also appointment of Mr. Van Horn, who has so patiently hung in here with us for this meeting, to be the new chair of the Friendship Heights Sector Plan Committee. Jonathan Halpern, who has been serving as chair since inception of the committee, will be remaining on. We're doing some musical chairs to share the load with the membership. Of course, it's a 3-person, very busy, very mighty committee, and this would allow a little relief from Mr. Halpern as Mr. Van Horn steps up to lead the committee as we go forward. The last item related to committees would be reappointments under the 2-year terms for community relations, financial review, traffic, and tree, and would be reappointment of all of the existing committee chairs. Now I fear we're going too fast because I still have not heard from Ms. Leonard or Ms. Waters, but it's okay.
So
Yeah, I see a motion coming.
I
over here.
move to reappoint Harry Crockett to serve as village building officer and to appoint William Van Horn to serve as chairman of the ad hoc Friendship Heights Sector Plan Committee, as well as reappoint as chairs Lance Patterson to the Community Relations Committee, Bill Weeby, I guess it is, to the Traffic and Tree Committee, and William Kirby to the Financial Review Committee, all to serve 2-year terms expiring in July 2028.
Thank you.
Second. And all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
5 in favor, no opposed. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
And that now moves us down to
I'm gonna.
police report, manager's report. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll
And
skip
Shana,
over the
yeah.
chief since he's trying to reach Ms. Leonard by phone. Really just wanted to highlight the sad news that unfortunately our longtime public works supervisor, Luis Galindo, has decided that he will need to retire. The back issues that took him out of service back in March have worsened, and his doctors have essentially given him the long-term prognosis that he will not be able to return to work here. So we are working with him to establish his eligibility for long-term disability. And so his actual retirement date is pending until we make sure that he is fully set to go on that, but he will be retiring from us very soon. He would have reached 20 years of service with us in September of this year. And Luis is a really special guy, but he really was instrumental in bringing Anthony Young, our Director of Public Works, who started with us now 4 years ago, I believe, bringing him up to speed and fully getting him acclimated into the village. Luis has also been our lead on all things mechanical and technical. And so he really has, over the years, saved us what I would imagine is probably hundreds of thousands of dollars with mechanical, electrical, plumbing fixes that he has been able to do for us that we then didn't have to contract out to someone else. So his loss will absolutely be felt. Anthony Young and I have already started talking about not only filling his position, but identifying where we may need to fill in some of those technical skills gaps with some additional contract support. So we'll certainly have more discussions with the board about that as we move forward, but just wanted to highlight for you that there's certainly a deep loss that we'll have from his retirement.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I have nothing else to add to my written report unless there are any questions, but Chief, I did take your place while you were making that phone call.
Okay, thank you. You need me long or short?
Short.
Am I dancing or
Oh.
are we stalling or?
I assume you were not able to reach
No, left a voicemail and sent a text.
for Ms. Leonard?
Yes.
Okay. I may step out then and try to reach Ms. Waters while the chief gives you.
Yep.
Okay, so June was luckily a quiet month. We had one theft. Turned out it was a worker in the 5500 block of Park Street. Officer Warner was able to track down the workers and locate the item in a pawn shop. And she went last week and got charges of the commissioner. So we have both the property back and charges were approved. So hopefully we'll see some good court action on that. The other good news is we are fully staffed now. We all hired Officer Jamil Lee, who is riding with Officer Hernjack right now, waiting for his certification card to come in so he can actually start doing some police work, but he's in a ride-along status now. And we are continuing work for National Night Out on August 4th. Public Safety Committee's doing a great job getting the word out through the listserv, so anything you can do to help spread that word as well. We've got a good expanded lineup this year, a lot of good information. We're going to try walking tacos for some food along with hot dogs. So we're branching out and getting experimental. So come out and join us.
That's great.
And that's all I've got unless you
Thank
need
you
to hear a
for-
knock joke or something else while we wait.
Unable to reach Ms. Waters, so I would suggest that we can either bring this back to the board in September, or we can try to schedule a special meeting where we might be able to get 5 votes to move forward on the traffic group contract.
And
Unless there's another option.
I've got relationships.
no, you got to do what you got to do.
Yeah.
I don't, no apology needed. I mean,
Great.
that's just,
How about could we find out when the fifth member and just have a call?
Yeah, we could do a special meeting that we
Yeah.
can convene just on that one topic, and we could just do that virtually. That
Yeah,
doesn't need
and
to
do
be in
that
person.
next, later this week or next week.
Yeah.
As soon as we've got and they can move forward on the current schedule. I mean, as long
Oh,
as
Ms.
we,
Waters is calling me back.
well,
So
what do you know?
Here we go.
We were stalling long enough.
sorry about that. I'm so sorry to bother you. Did you get my voicemail? Okay. If you can log in right now, we can get this done in 60 seconds. This is the traffic group contract recommendation. Yes. No, it is. Primrose, Broad Branch, Newlands petitions that is to look at the east side of the village, as well as a proposal for an efficacy study for the existing access restriction signs in the town of Chevy Chase. That's perfectly fine. Just a phone vote. We just need to be able to record that you are present remotely, and then we'll call the vote again, and you can place your vote.
Should I reread
So give me 1 second. Let me see. I think I can actually call you. Let me see. Yes, invite. Oh, actually, let's do it this way. Since I'm on the phone with you, can you give me your cell phone number?
Shana, put your phone on the speaker.
Okay, actually, everyone is suggesting that I just put you up to the mic. I think we're gonna get feedback if I do that. That's the only thing I'm worried about, but let me try.
Just put it on speakerphone, just like anybody else talking.
Yes, that's what we're gonna try to do, but, all right, hang on. If we get feedback in the room, though, I will just send you a text with the login that you can click on. All right, hang on. Oh,
Just set it down on the.
okay. Can you hear me?
Yes.
we can-
Hello, hello.
Can you hear Mr. Crockett, who's going to give the motion?
Okay. I move to authorize an override of the competitive bidding requirements and to authorize the village manager to enter into a contract in substantially the form provided and subject to review by village council with the traffic group incorporated for the performance of a traffic analysis pursuant to recommendations from the village traffic committee in an amount not to exceed $47,000 and an assessment of the efficacy of listing access restriction signage along Connecticut Avenue in the town of Cherry Chase in an amount not to exceed $6,250.
Is there a second?
Yes.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? And noting one recusal. The motion passes and we will proceed with the traffic study.
Great.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Nancy.
Yes, Ms. Waters, thank you so much. Oh, fantastic. Thank you. Appreciate it. Have a good one. You too. Bye.
Any other motions tonight?
I move to adjourn.
I'll second.
All in favor? Meeting is adjourned.
Right.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Linda.
Thank you.
Thank you.